So today we're going to get into something that is, it's honestly pretty intense.
Yeah, it really is.
Imagine imagine hitting solid concrete
Right.
head first.
Oh, man.
And you're going 30 miles per hour.
Yeah, that's
It's brutal. Like your skull completely splits in half.
Yeah.
From the very top of your head all the way down to the base of your neck.
Which is, I mean, biologically, that's catastrophic.
Right. And your lungs just instantly fill with blood. By every law of, I don't know, human biology, physics, whatever, this should be a moment of just pure agonizing panic.
Absolute terror.
Yeah. Your body's alarm should be absolutely screaming.
Right.
But for this 20-year-old guy named Gabe, his experience was like, it was the exact opposite.
It's wild.
He felt zero fear. Nothing. In fact, he said that stepping out of his completely broken physical body, it felt like it was as effortless as taking off a tight glove.
Right. And that right there, it immediately forces us to kind of suspend our conventional understanding of trauma, because we're looking at a narrative that it doesn't just like blur the line between biology and spirituality. It completely redraws the map.
Totally.
And, you know, regardless of a listener's personal background or worldview, this account, it provides this incredibly structured, almost like mechanical cosmology.
Super detailed, yeah.
Extremely. We get the detailed mechanics of how the spiritual realm operates, down to like the literal processing of human words and the unseen forces driving modern society and confusion.
Which we're going to get into because it is fascinating.
Right. And just to be clear, our objective today isn't to validate his claims or you know, debunk them. We're just here to explore the sheer architecture of this really vivid narrative.
Okay, let's unpack this because to understand the metaphysical journey, we have to really ground ourselves in the sheer brutality of the physical event first.
Yeah, we have to start on the pavement.
Exactly. So according to the interview transcript, Gabe is 20 years old. He's actually just like days away from his 21st birthday.
Barely an adult, really.
Right. And he's out racing an electric skateboard against a friend. And he hits a bump on a curve going 30 miles per hour.
30 miles an hour on a skateboard is...
It's so fast.
Yeah, it's incredibly fast.
And he backflips and lands directly on his head.
Yeah.
And he has no helmet. In fact, he mentions he actively mocked helmets.
Right, he said helmets were for the crazies or something.
Yeah. And the trauma is just immediately catastrophic. His friend is left there holding his lifeless, bleeding body on the pavement.
It's a horrific scene.
But I'm struggling with the emotional disconnect here. Like, if my skull cracks in half, my biological hardware is flooding my system with just pure terror.
Like eosinophil and cortisol all...
Right. So how does a human consciousness bypass that entirely?
Well, the transcript suggests that the bypass happened because the consciousness completely detached from the biological hardware, like the microsecond the impact happened.
Oh, okay.
There was no agonizing, you know, fade to black.
Right.
No ringing in the ears or fading in and out of a coma at the scene. He describes this immediate sharp transition.
So just boom, he's out.
Boom, exactly. His physical body went rigid and his spirit separated instantly.
Wow.
And the terror you're talking about, that's a biological imperative, right? It's the brain trying desperately to keep the organism alive.
Yeah, it's survival mode.
Right. But the moment his consciousness was no longer tethered to those survival mechanisms, the biological panic just, it simply vanished.
So he says he hovered like 10 to 15 feet above his own dying body, just watching his friend scream and freak out.
Yeah.
And he felt nothing but peace.
Which is so hard to fathom.
It really is. He said he was finally seeing the world for what it truly was and seeing himself for who he truly was.
Not just a damaged container.
Right. Not a biological body, but a spirit. It's kind of like, I don't know, it's like taking off a really heavy restrictive suit that you didn't even know you were wearing your whole life.
That's a great way to put it. Which initiates this profound shift in his perspective right there.
Yeah.
Because he notes that while his body was essentially dead on the pavement, his core identity, it remained entirely intact.
He was still Gabe.
Exactly. In fact, he felt more lucid and alive than he ever had in physical form.
Wow.
And from that hovering position, he describes being pulled upward into a tunnel of light. And the emotional state here is highly specific.
How so?
As he moves upward, he says all the darkness and the weight of the physical world literally just melted off him.
That sounds incredible. But it wasn't just some, like, you know, sensory deprivation tank of calmness.
Yeah,
right?
I know. It was very active.
He describes feeling this profound, holy respect. like a trembling reverence in his soul.
Yes, a trembling.
But he goes out of his way to clarify that this trembling had zero fear in it.
Right.
Like he didn't feel like a stranger trespassing in some restricted cosmic area, you know?
Right, because he realized he wasn't traveling to a geographical location.
Oh, interesting.
The light at the end of this tunnel wasn't a place, it was a person.
Wow.
He understood intrinsically that he had an appointment with heaven itself, embodied in a singular entity.
So the reverence was about who he was meeting.
Exactly. The reverence came from the absolute purity of that impending encounter, completely devoid of the, earthly anxiety we usually associate with meeting a supreme authority.
I have to admit, like, when I read the next phase of his account, this phrase, life review, my stomach instantly dropped.
Oh, yeah. Everyone dreads that idea.
Right. For most of us, if we imagine our entire life flashing before our eyes in a single moment, it sounds like an absolute nightmare.
It's the ultimate vulnerability.
Yeah, it's the part of the story where the cosmic gavel comes down and you are just painfully exposed for every lie you've ever told, every mistake.
Every selfish thought.
Exactly. And Gabe felt that same impending doom. He went into this expecting the absolute worst.
Because of how he'd been living.
Right. He recounts his earthly behavior leading up to the crash, and he was living as a massive hypocrite.
Playing both sides.
Yeah, playing both sides. He had intense hidden addictions to pornography and drugs. He was just terrified that his spiritual rap sheet was about to condemn him.
Which perfectly mirrors the traditional, punitive framework most people hold regarding divine judgment.
Right, that fear-based view.
We're conditioned to view the afterlife as a cosmic courtroom, right?
Yeah, where a ledger of our moral failures is used to weigh our ultimate worth.
Exactly. Gabe was entirely braced for a session of brutal exposure and shame.
But his narrative completely subverts that expectation.
Completely. It redefines the very nature of judgment in this realm.
Because instead of a prosecutor reading off a list of charges, he sees Jesus standing beside him through every single one of those mistakes.
Right. He witnessed a completely different mechanism of divine interaction.
Yeah.
The review didn't focus on his failures as leverage for punishment. Instead, it revealed that Jesus was actively present with him during his darkest, most hypocritical moments.
Was orchestrating things.
Orchestrating circumstances and weaving those failures into a broader tapestry for his ultimate good.
Wow.
The presence wasn't condemning at all. It was intensely and constantly redemptive.
And the climax of this review is just staggering. Like Gabe is standing in what he perceives as a throne room, right?
Right.
And he's still carrying this residual earthly expectation that he is doomed.
The guilt is still clinging to him.
Yeah. And Jesus physically lifts Gabe's head, shows him his own wounds, and says something that just, it stops you in your tracks.
It really does.
He says, Gabriel, the price is paid. Why are you concerned about that which does not exist?
That which does not exist.
Yeah.
It is a fundamental paradigm shift regarding the spiritual physics of this realm.
What do you mean?
Well, in our physical world, rejection, guilt, the constant need to prove our worth, those are very real psychological forces.
No, absolutely. They drive everything.
Right. But Gabe is being told that in this specific heavenly dimension, those concepts are literal non-entities.
They just aren't real there.
They do not possess mass or energy or reality. They simply do not exist.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though, because the way Gabe describes the physical and spiritual nature of Jesus, it completely shatters the typical Sunday school aesthetic most people are familiar with.
Oh, yeah. The classic Renaissance paintings.
Right. If you picture the pale, soft-spoken figure gently holding a lamb, Gabe is very blunt in saying that is entirely inaccurate.
He was very clear about that.
He says Jesus is not soft, he is not feminine, and he is not quote-unquote nice.
Right.
He describes a profoundly intense masculine figure who does not play games and means exactly what he says.
What's fascinating here is how Gabe differentiates between an action and a state of being.
Oh, right. I wanted to ask about this.
Yeah, he observes that Jesus doesn't do loving things. He doesn't have to summon the effort to love Gabe despite his earthly flaws.
It's not a choice he's making in the moment.
Exactly. Rather, his fundamental structural being is love.
Wow.
Gabe is enveloped in an atmosphere where love is the actual physics of the environment, not just an emotional reaction to his behavior.
I want to dig into the visual description he gives too, because it forces the brain to grapple with these really high-level, multidimensional concepts.
It's trippy. Yeah.
It is. Gabe says Jesus appeared as a man about 6 feet tall.
Right. A localized physical form.
But simultaneously, within that local form, he expanded To encompass the infinite lengths of eternity.
Yeah.
Try to wrap your head around that. How does a localized 6-foot form contain infinite space?
It implies a reality where the limitations of three-dimensional physics simply do not apply at all.
Right.
In our universe, a physical object occupies a specific mutually exclusive space, but Gabe is describing a hyperdimensional being.
Okay, what does that look like?
It's akin to observing a tesseract, right? A higher dimension folding in on itself so that the infinite can be perceived by a finite consciousness without losing its infinite nature.
That is wild. And he applies that exact same multi-dimensional paradox to his appearance and race, too.
Yes, the racial description is fascinating.
When asked what race Jesus was, Gabe says he used every race simultaneously.
All at once.
Black, brown, white, yellow, purple, just all intersecting.
Yeah.
He even describes him as being both intensely dark and intensely light at the exact same time.
Which completely short-circuits our human obsession with categorizing things right.
Yeah, dividing everything into neat little earthly boxes.
Because earthly categories are rooted in separation and limitation. Gabe is witnessing total integration.
Total integration.
And the psychological impact of being exposed to a being of total integration and absolute love is instantaneous.
It changes him immediately.
Yes. Gabe notes that as Jesus released his own being into him, the desire to ever compromise or play the fence with worldly things was entirely eradicated.
So it wasn't about like trying harder to be a good person anymore.
Precisely not.
It wasn't discipline.
No, when you are confronted with absolute unconditional reality, the fading temporary attractions of the earthly realm, they just lose all their gravitational pull.
Right, the addictions just fall away.
The sheer presence of that unmerited acceptance eliminated his need to seek fulfillment in the hypocrisy that had previously controlled his life.
And Gabe's realization that he was entirely accepted, it really changes the whole architecture of his afterlife experience.
It sets the stage for what he sees next.
Because if heaven isn't a sterile clinical courtroom designed for judgment, what actually populates that infinite space?
Right.
And that brings us to what he saw next, which completely reimagines the biblical concept of many mansions.
This part is so cool.
It is. And this is where the massive cosmic scale of heaven gets hyper-specific and deeply, deeply personal.
Because the traditional religious view often paints heaven as this uniform city of gold, right?
Streets of gold, pearly gates.
Where everyone gets an identical opulent palace, just very generic.
Right. But Gabe describes a deeply personalized architecture. These weren't generic structures. They were highly customized environments.
Built specifically for the individual.
He says his personal mansion had a basketball hoop.
A basketball hoop in heaven.
Right. It sounds almost too earthly. It had a specific style of table he liked. The backyard was designed in a very specific way, situated right near the beach and the mountains simultaneously.
All the elements he naturally gravitated toward on Earth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It makes me think of like a master architect who doesn't just build a visually stunning house, but they design a bespoke environment where the acoustics, the lighting, the spatial flow, it all perfectly matches your specific psychological flow state.
That's exactly it.
The architect studies your deepest joys and constructs a reality that endlessly facilitates them, like a parent building the ultimate personalized treehouse for their kid.
That analogy captures the intentionality perfectly, and Gabe provides the underlying rationale for these physical-seeming details.
Why are they there?
He realizes that a basketball hoop or a beach in heaven aren't just material rewards for good behavior.
Okay.
They're deeply spiritual manifestations. They exist because the Creator inherently values and loves the specific passions and desires and quirks that he deliberately engineered into Gabe's personality in the first place.
Oh, wow. So the environment is a reflection of God's intimate attentiveness to the individual.
Yes, he cares about the things Gabe cares about.
Because he put those cares there.
It demonstrates a deity that isn't merely operating on a macro universal scale, just managing galaxies,
Right?
but is intensely invested in the micro details of individual identity. The mansions are physical expressions of God's glory, refracted through the unique prism of Gabe's personal joy.
That is just a beautiful way to look at it.
It changes everything about how you view the afterlife.
So we have this vivid picture of an environment uniquely built for us, tailored to our specific nature.
Right.
But then Gabe introduces a concept that flips the entire dynamic.
This is where it gets heavy.
Yeah. Because while heaven is actively built for us, our words down on earth literally build the infrastructure of heaven.
Yes.
And I really need you to break this down because I'm struggling to wrap my head around the mechanics of this.
It's a complex idea.
A prayer is just a sound wave, right? It's breath vibrating across vocal cords in a physical room.
In our physical understanding, yes.
How does an acoustic vibration in a hospital room become a tangible building block in a spiritual dimension? What is the actual mechanism Gabe describes here?
So to understand the mechanism, we have to look at how Gabe defines human beings within the specific cosmology.
Okay.
He doesn't see humans merely as advanced biology. He describes humans as free will, moral agents who were not only created by the divine word, but were created for the word.
Created for the word.
In this framework, human speech isn't just communication, it is a creative engine.
So when a human speaks, they aren't just making noise, they're generating like spiritual mass.
According to Gabe's vision, yes. When humans choose to speak the word of God out loud, aligning their free will with divine intent, they are engaging in the original mechanism of creation.
Wow.
He realized that in the third heaven, these spoken words possess more density, more reality, and more permanence than any physical matter on earth.
That's hard to grasp.
The physical world is temporary, but the spoken spiritual word is eternal material.
So if you've ever prayed for a sick relative or a friend in crisis, and you felt like your words were just, hitting the hospital ceiling and bouncing back into the void.
Feeling completely powerless, yeah.
Gabe's vision completely dismantles that anxiety.
It gives those words immense weight.
It gives this incredibly specific visual regarding the prayers of his friends and family, and specifically a praying nurse who stood over his shattered body and audibly declared that he would live and not die.
Right. Gabe witnessed an elaborate, highly structured assembly line of how these specific words were processed.
An assembly line.
Yes. Jesus didn't just passively hear the nurse's prayer like background noise. He actively collected every single word of faith spoken over Gabe's body.
Like physical objects.
Exactly. Gabe noted that gathering these words was treated as an absolute priority in the heavenly realm.
They became the literal building blocks we were talking about.
Yes.
And Jesus takes these blocks and places them into what Gabe describes as a golden bowl. And he really emphasizes that this golden bowl is heaven's most precious possession.
Which tells you the value placed on human agency. And once the prayers are deposited into the golden bowl, a collaborative process of creation occurs.
What happens?
Jesus leans over and breathes onto these earthly words, essentially adopting them as his own divine breath.
Okay.
He then presents this bowl to the Father, presenting the combined will of humanity and himself.
Wow.
And the Father then breathes back into the bowl.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this completely upends how we view human agency.
It really does.
Prayer is no longer a passive wish or a desperate plea thrown into an empty sky. It is a highly active, energetic currency.
It is.
It's a literal transaction that forces reality to bend and manifest.
It acts as a bridge between dimensions. In fact, Jesus makes the utility of these prayers explicitly clear to Gabe.
Oh, right, when he tells him he has to go back?
Exactly. When informing Gabe that he has to return to his physical body, Jesus says, I'm sending you back on the prayers of my sons and daughters who spoke my word out loud.
Sending him back on the prayers.
The prayers didn't just ask for his return, they provided the literal tracks, the structural vehicle required for his consciousness to re-enter his healed biology.
That places just an overwhelming amount of weight on the things we say.
It does, a terrifying amount of weight.
Which immediately forces a terrifying question, right? Like, if our words aligned with faith have that much creative structural power in the third heaven, what happens to the billions of words we speak that aren't aligned?
The idle words.
Yeah, what happens to our anger, our gossip, our idle negativity? Do they just evaporate, or is there a different spiritual economy for those?
Gabe's cosmology addresses this directly, and it introduces the concept of the second heaven.
Okay, the second heaven.
And it is a much darker, highly cautionary ecosystem. He describes the second heaven essentially as a holding area or a centralized bank for the totality of human words.
A bank for words.
And this environment is populated by fallen entities.
He ties the origin of these entities directly to ancient biblical lore, right? Specifically Genesis chapter 6.
Yes, the Nephilim.
He refers to them as the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim, the offspring of fallen angels who interbred with humanity.
Right.
He notes that while a global flood may have wiped out their physical bodies, these rogue spirits remain trapped in the second heaven, maintaining a parasitic influence over the earth.
Parasitic is the perfect word for it.
But how do ancient disembodied spirits actually exert power over modern society? Like, how does that practically work?
Well, this raises an important question about the nature of authority in Gabe's worldview.
Okay.
He states unequivocally that these fallen entities possess absolutely zero independent power.
And none at all.
None. They cannot create and they cannot act unilaterally. The only authority they wield is the exact amount of authority that human beings freely hand over to them
Through our words.
through our attention, our actions, and primarily our spoken words.
It's almost like a decentralized power grid or
Uh-huh.
like a massive social media algorithm.
Oh, that's a great comparison.
Right. Because the system itself has no inherent power. It's just empty code.
Right.
It only functions. It only learns and dominates based on the energy of our attention and our outrage.
Exactly.
The entities are essentially the algorithm constantly feeding off human engagement to gain influence.
That is a highly accurate modern equivalent. Gabe says these entities literally eat off the banks of people's words in the second heaven.
Eat our words.
Every time humanity speaks out fear, division, hatred, or chaos, we are unwittingly depositing high-value currency into a spiritual account that these dark entities consume.
Wow. We fund the darkness.
We fund the very darkness that we are constantly complaining about.
Which perfectly sets up the prophetic warning Gabe received before he was sent back.
Yes, the two storms.
Jesus told him to warn the world about two specific storms that are currently descending upon America and the globe.
A storm of darkness and a storm of great confusion.
And Gabe emphasizes that the seeds of these storms are already deeply rooted, right? Like they're growing behind the scenes of our daily lives right now.
The storm of confusion is specifically targeted at the very core of human identity, to the point where people won't even know what humanity fundamentally is anymore.
I mean, look at the landscape of modern society right now.
It's chaotic.
We are navigating the rapid acceleration of artificial intelligence, intense debates over biological and digital identity, and just a constant, exhausting bombardment of conflicting information.
Nonstop.
A storm of great confusion threatening the integrity of humanity is an incredibly potent description of the current zeitgeist.
It is.
And in Gabe's framework, this isn't just random sociological drift or, technological growing pains.
No, it's very intentional.
It is the direct result of falling entities gaining massive authority because humanity is feeding them through our collective chaotic words.
The societal fracturing we're experiencing is, according to his vision, the manifestation of that funded authority.
They're using our own energy against us.
The entities are utilizing the fear and division we feed them to obscure the basic truths of human nature and divine design.
So if I'm a listener tuning into this on my morning commute, right, trying to pay my mortgage and just keep my head above water,
Just living everyday life, yeah.
how am I supposed to respond to a cosmic threat of this scale? Like if there's an unseen economy of ancient entities feeding on a global bank of negative words to create a storm of confusion, what is the practical daily protocol to combat that?
It feels overwhelming.
It really does. Because my first instinct is that I need to fight back harder. I need to argue louder for what is right.
Yeah.
Call out the darkness on social media, whatever.
Right, you want to go to war. Interestingly, Gabe insists that fighting back in that manner is the exact wrong approach.
Really? Why?
Because if your reaction to the storm is to engage in constant anxious warfare, you are likely just generating more chaotic words and depositing more fear into that second heaven economy.
Oh, wow. You're feeding the algorithm.
You are feeding the algorithm while trying to destroy it.
So what is the alternative?
Total submission and absolute surrender to Christ.
Okay.
And Gabe acknowledges that submission is a deeply unpopular concept, particularly in modern Western culture.
Oh, yeah, we hate that word.
Right, where independence and self-reliance are our highest virtues. We view submission as a weakness, a loss of autonomy.
Like giving up.
But in this spiritual physics, submission implies a strategic yielding of your own frantic, exhausting attempts to control a narrative you cannot master.
Like dropping the rope in a tug of war you were never equipped to win.
Exactly. His practical advice is remarkably grounded. Get low.
Get low.
Humble yourself. Go into the quietest room or closet of your house. Get on your physical knees and seek a silent one-on-one encounter with the divine.
Stop talking and just surrender.
Gabe's assertion is that if you fully surrender your authority to him, he actively does the resisting of the darkness on your behalf.
Wow.
The light functions best when we stop trying to manufacture our own sparks and simply give authority over to the source of light itself.
It's a complete transfer of the heavy
I
lifting.
see.
Now, to truly ground the sheer magnitude of these spiritual claims, we have to transition from the metaphysical back to the harsh, sterile reality of that hospital room.
The medical side of this is mind-blowing.
Because this entire vivid journey didn't happen in a vacuum. It didn't happen during a deep meditation or like a psychedelic trip.
Right.
It happened while Gabe's shattered body was lying in a trauma ward for nearly 3 weeks.
The medical timeline is the anchor that prevents this story from just drifting into pure, unfalsifiable fantasy.
Yeah. After the impact, Gabe was in a deep coma for 18 days.
18 days.
His condition was so critical that the hospital staff had placed him in the section reserved for the most extreme, hopeless trauma cases.
A place they grimly referred to as the area for the screamers.
Which is just a horrific detail.
Yeah.
They were quite literally preparing the body bag. His parents were told to prepare for the end.
There was no medical hope.
The medical staff were just about to perform a tracheotomy, cutting a hole in his neck to manage his failing airway because his body was just shutting down entirely.
Right.
It is in that exact desperate window that his friend and that nurse were standing over him speaking those words of faith.
Building the tracks for his return.
Exactly. And that is the precise moment he wakes up.
Wakes up, not with a slow, agonizing return to partial consciousness, but waking up with full, lucid cognitive function.
Which is impossible.
Right. His very first words to the stunned medical staff were, "Well, the Lord said I'll live and not die, so thank you."
So what does this all mean? How does a hardened skeptic grapple with an event like this?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because you have these vast, unprovable claims about golden bowls and interdimensional entities on one hand, but you have cold, hard medical charts and CT scans on the other.
The skeptic has to contend with the medical anomaly.
Yeah.
The most compelling piece of evidence isn't just Gabe's survival, but the total absence of permanent neurological damage.
Right.
A month prior to giving the interview we are analyzing, Gabe returned to that exact same hospital emergency room.
Wow.
He sought out the specific doctor who had treated him on the day of the crash.
The trauma doctor, who looked at a 20-year-old kid with the skull split in half, bleeding into his lungs, and had to make the call to put him in an indefinite coma.
Right. And when this doctor sees Gabe walk into the ER fully functioning,
Yeah.
he walks up and physically touches him.
Like checking to see if he's a ghost.
Almost as if checking to see if he is a hallucination.
Yeah.
And the doctor says to him, "I believe in God. I can't explain you."
That is a staggering admission from a man whose entire career is based on empirical science.
It really is. The doctor openly admitted that the medical establishment had zero scientific explanation for why Gabe was alive, let alone fully recovered.
None at all.
Based on every metric of modern neurology, every prior case study of a traumatic brain injury of that severity resulted in death or permanent catastrophic brain damage.
The clinical expectation was that if Gabe somehow survived the pressure in his skull, he would be a, quote, mental vegetable for the remainder of his life.
Yet he regained all his weight, all his cognitive faculties, and completely recovered.
It forces a massive wedge into the strictly materialist worldview, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
When the leading medical experts look at the data and say, science cannot account for this outcome, it creates a tangible, real-world footprint for a journey that supposedly took place entirely outside of our measurable dimensions.
Right.
It demands that we at least consider the possibility that the metaphysical architecture Gabe described had a literal physical impact on his cellular recovery.
It acts as an undeniable physical receipt for a spiritual transaction.
That's a great way to frame it. We have covered an immense amount of territory on this deep dive today.
You really have.
We started on the scorching concrete with a 30-mile-per-hour impact that shattered a young man's skull and instantly separated his consciousness from his biology.
Yep.
We followed that consciousness up through a tunnel devoid of earthly fear into a profound encounter with a hyperdimensional figure whose very being is love.
Fundamentally erasing the human concept of punitive rejection.
Exactly. We explored a customized, bespoke architecture of the afterlife, where heavenly mansions are intimately tailored to match our deepest earthly flow states and passions.
And we mapped out an incredibly detailed spiritual economy.
Right, from the golden bowls, where our aligned spoken prayers are breathed into structural reality by the divine, to the shadowy second heaven, where our destructive, fearful words act as the primary food source for ancient fallen entities.
It's a lot to process.
And we brought it all back to a miraculous, medically inexplicable physical recovery that left trauma doctors questioning their own scientific models.
It is a narrative that aggressively challenges the boundaries of how we perceive life, death, and the hidden weight of our own voices.
Which brings us to a final, crucial point of reflection.
Yes.
If we entertain Gabe's premise that human words are the literal currency feeding these unseen realms, it forces us to look at the unprecedented era we are currently living in.
The digital age.
Right. We're in the digital age where humanity generates more written and spoken words in a single day than entire generations did in a century.
Trillions of words.
We are currently training massive artificial intelligence models on trillions of our casual, often angry, discarded words. The internet is an endless repository of human outrage, fear, and division.
It's the ultimate bank of words.
If the second heaven entities feed off the energy of human output, are we unwittingly building a massive automated global pipeline directly to the second heaven?
Wow.
Are we using our highest technology to exponentially fund the very storm of confusion that threatens to erase our humanity?
That is a terrifying, fascinating thought to sit with.
As you go about your day, pay close attention to the words you are releasing into the world, both in the quiet of your own home and in the digital void. Are you building up the architecture of heaven, or are you just feeding the storm? Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and we'll see you next time.